the Lockets referral.
0528.
Okay.
Or I got that facial
Yeah.
Isn't that the coolest thing? Do you have it on your phone?
I do.
Yeah.
I have it on my iPad, not my phone.
Good afternoon, residents and team members and families of the Cedarfield community. I hope all is well with you. Happy July 26th. It is a little after 3 o'clock. Those of you that are joining us live here today, appreciate you taking time out. Those of you that are listening to the video tonight, thank you for taking time away from family time, children, husbands, whatever, to listen to information about Cedarfield. The format for today is we have yours truly here for about 20 minutes talking about COVID-19, followed up by Ann Hopper and Dr. Shear, who are here to talk about navigating COVID-19. Tricia Carter is here to talk about our Good News segment with Mary Ann Baker, news and story, and then Kite Brown, one of our interns, is here to lead us in some spiritual well-being. So before we jump right into some COVID-19 information, just want everyone to know that this week is the last week that we will be on this specific set. We're going to change it up a little bit starting next week. I've heard a lot of feedback from residents and families and team members on both sides of this live chat. Some residents are saying that they just want a real quick snapshot and facts about COVID-19. So we're going to do that in the beginning of our continued live chats on Wednesdays. There are other residents who said, Michael, we need to see more faces of people who are leading different departments. And so starting next week, we're going to change up the formats. For the first 10 minutes or so of this live chat, we're going to talk about COVID-19 and stick to the facts. So those of you that just want the facts about COVID-19, you'll be able to watch on the front end of the live chat for about 10-15 minutes and get that information. We will tell you when we're going to conclude information about COVID-19, and then we'll launch into other speakers, guest speakers that will be with us on alternating weeks. I'm going to send out a memo next week, early next week, to talk about the format so that you can all have that at your coffee, on your coffee table and refer to it from week to week about who the speakers are for that relevant week. So for the next 10 minutes, those of you that are just interested in COVID-19 facts, nationally, regionally, and here locally, I'm going to talk to you about COVID-19 facts for the next 10 minutes, and then you can go on with your day. So nationally, the United States has 4.70,000 people that have cases of COVID-19. Unfortunately, there's been, if you haven't been following the news, there's been 153,000 people that have unfortunately passed away. On a regional level, I'm going to give you some statistics about the number of cases, the number of positives, and the 7-day positivity rate in the surrounding counties. In Virginia, we are the 14th state with the highest number of cases, rounding out at 87,993 cases. Unfortunately, the Commonwealth has experienced about 2,125 deaths, which is a 7-day positivity rate of a 7.1%. To give you an idea of that, down in Hampton Roads area that we have been learning about through the governor in his recent briefings, they have a 14% positivity rate. Here in Wright County, which is the 5th county on the map with the highest number of cases, we have 3,466, with 177 unfortunate deaths. We are, in this county, holding at about 7.2% positivity rate over the last 7 days. From the last time that I reported, we were right about 7.5, so slightly down, but holding steady, rated above 7%. The Richmond area, that county, is the 8th county in the Commonwealth with the most cases at 2,831. Unfortunate deaths within the Richmond county limits is 39, and Richmond is holding at about 5.8% over a 7-day period of time. Last time, 2 weeks ago, when we reported that out, it was at about a 6.1%. So again, a little slight dip in the Richmond area. Chesterfield is the 4th county within the Commonwealth with the most cases, with about 3,829. There have been 69 unfortunate deaths within the Chesterfield area, and they are holding steady from about 2 weeks ago at a 7.5% 7-day positivity rate. Goochland has only 149 cases. They have 7 unfortunate deaths. They're not even on the radar screen for a positivity rate because their numbers are so small. So that's the regional trends. On the local level, hopefully everyone has had a chance to read a memo that we posted earlier this week. Cedarfield is entering its 22nd week of COVID-19 evolving preparedness plan. As I said in the memo, our goal has been and will continue to be the safety and welfare of our residents and our team members, and certainly the families. We now have 2 different 3-phase plans. We have a 3-phase plan for independent living, and we have a 3-phase plan for health services. I'm just going to concentrate on some of the metrics here in independent living. Independent living right now is in phase 2 of our 3-phase plan. Thankfully, yesterday, the governor did not announce that we were rolling back the Commonwealth's plan from a 3-phase plan. So we, as a state, we're holding steady with phase 3 of the governor's 3-phase plan. So Cedarfield has no intentions this week or next to roll back our plan. We're in phase 2, and we are pretty comfortable staying in phase 2. We are not progressing to a 3rd phase in independent living because of the data that's coming at us within the Virginia Department of Health. So right now in independent living, which includes the cottages and the independent living apartments, we have 0 positive COVID-19 cases. We have 0 tests that are pending with any lab that we know of. We have 0 residents that are on any contact tracing list. We have 0 residents that are that have reported to us or that we know of that have any prolonged exposures. We define prolonged exposure of being in front of somebody that has COVID-19 or maybe signs and symptoms within 6 feet of that individual and talking to that person within 6 feet without a mask and for more than 15 minutes. We have 0 prolonged exposures. In fact, we don't have any resident with any signs and symptoms of COVID-19 or even influenza at this point. And we have 0 residents that are being, is that true, quarantined? We have 2 residents right now that are in quarantining protocols for a variety of reasons. So those are the statistics for independent living. In our licensed area, we have not even entered phase 1 yet of a 3-phase plan. We're still working out some of the details that are required by the Virginia Department of Health in order to even move into phase 1. One of those requirements has to do with testing. If you recall, and if you read the memo from earlier in the week, we had a mandated point prevalence survey from the Virginia Department of Health on July 9th, which netted 0 positive cases. And then per that guideline, you had to follow up with another test operated manually or facilitated by the local community. So we did that on July 16th. That test netted 2 team members that were asymptomatic. And because of that, we had to weekly test 164 people in either memory support or assisted living, and had 2 back-to-back tests that were COVID-free. Last week was one of those tests. I'm happy to announce, as you read in your memo, for those of you that have not, we had 0 positive cases last week. Today and tomorrow, we're conducting that second test. So keep everything crossed that all the tests, again, of residents and team members, contractors, private duty aides that happen to be working in and around memory support and assisted living are going through that second test, or what would be a 4th test this week. And the lab that we have a contract with is very efficient. We should hear those results hopefully by Saturday. So that's all good news. We don't have any residents or team members that are on a contact trace list. We don't have any other residents or team members that have a prolonged exposure. We have 0 residents as of this morning. I don't know if this number has changed. As of this morning, we have 0 residents that are showing any signs and symptoms that the CDC is asking us to follow for our COVID-19 dashboard. And we have 1 resident that's being quarantined in the health center due to a hospitalization. Connie McGowan, who's going to join us next week, so y'all can see her and have a little report from our infection control nurse. We'll be reporting out on some of what she's been doing to provide education with respect to infection control within all of the 5 neighborhoods within the licensed areas. So I think that does it for the facts and data and metrics around COVID-19. For those residents that were only interested in that data, we are going to conclude that portion of this live chat. I'm going to turn over the mic to Dr. Shear and Ann Hopper, who are going to go into a little bit more of navigating COVID-19. And then after that, I'll be coming back with some more administrative updates, and then we'll follow that up with some spiritual well-being and some good news. So, Ann, Dr. Shear.
Good to be back. We've taken a little break. But I've been here the whole time. Right. All right, we'll jump right in. This sounds something new that's very important. Does wearing a mask help me as well as others around me? So, it's interesting you brought that up. There was a study that came out, and there's been some news about basically, they took a look at, I think it was from Asia, right? They did a long-term study about people wearing masks. I think it was actually they had schools come back in session, and they're trying to figure out if it's important to wear a mask. What does it mean to wear a mask? And they found that although our cloth masks and what we're using, they're not protecting us necessarily from the ability to get the virus. There is still, penetration that happens. and then the amount of virus that you're exposed to is a lot less versus somebody coughing directly on your face and you're getting a large viral load all at once. That was associated with more of the lower respiratory symptoms and hospitalizations. The severity of disease was much worse than when they had low level of viral load exposure. Now, some of this may be causation, correlation, you know, these are not blind studies, these are more anecdotal, but they did find, or at least there is evidence showing that by wearing a mask and by having others wear a mask, even if you get the virus, the severity of the virus may be less. So you may end up with that more upper respiratory infection, cold-like presentation where you're not hospitalized, but just have, you know, minor symptoms or, very mild symptoms. So that's encouraging as we move towards opening more things up. That this, wearing masks and myself as well as others wearing masks that I encounter, that's going to be important for us in the future going forward. So really, if you're seeing people not wearing masks, I mean, I would, really kind of point that out and try and educate as much as possible.
Right.
Because it is just so important that we all wear masks, not just for ourselves, but for others.
Right. Okay. And another thing that's come up with Dr. Scheer with the heat is we're still doing the temperature checks at the gatehouse. And so they start with the temporal checking, and so there's no contact with the skin. So I think residents like that. But if it is higher, where it might show you have a fever, the gatehouse security guards are using a traditional thermometer that you would put under your tongue, but we use plastic probes. That would throw away.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So is that sterile, and is that what they should be doing if they have a discrepancy?
Right. So sometimes what's happening with the automatic ones that you're not having contact, which is great for not having contact, but it can hit the windshield sometimes. And I know there was one time I went through and it read like 108, and I thought, oh, I didn't feel that way. So then having a recheck with an oral thermometer would be the next step. As long as the plastic sleeve is on, there really is very little, zero exposure at that point. So I think, having that as a backup to confirm what the true temperature is,
Right.
is appropriate.
And a resident can always come to the clinic, but we'll use that same oral thermometer with the plastic probe because we have it too.
And by plastic probe, you're talking about the plastic cover
Right, that goes over.
and then gets thrown away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, or the resident can use their own, which I know thermometers are hard to come by, or we could deliver a thermometer, but we don't have many either. But certainly we have ways of checking if there's a concern from the gatehouse.
Yeah, and we want to know that, and we want to follow
Right.
that up.
Exactly. Here's one. Can I leave with my family for a month or longer? What is needed to return?
So, yes, I mean, this is not prison, so we do allow residents to leave, and even on the assisted living side, we're also, if somebody wants to go out with a family or be checked out for a month or longer, they are allowing that. We do ask that upon return, that if you're going to leave for a month or longer, that you're getting a COVID test prior to return, which is also what we ask from the hospitals, is that they check and confirm that a resident is negative upon returning. And then we still, which there was a bunch of studies on, people coming in and having negative tests from the hospital, and it was about a 30% rate of people that were actually positive but showing up negative on the test. So we still quarantine once you return. In assisted living, we actually get a second test upon return, and as long as that becomes negative, then we can take you everyone, making sure that even though that test in the hospital or that test prior to return was negative and we do need that information, we're still quarantining, monitoring for symptoms for that 14 days or until that second test returns negative.
Okay. Here's a question. Has the health department said when locker rooms or showers in the pool area can open?
So when, I know that the governor said that pools could open for exercise but not recreation, I believe.
But no showers in the locker room?
No, I think
now.
Yeah, I think that more has to do with, anytime you're looking at, is it gonna be an area of congregation? Or is it gonna be an area where people are not wearing masks? You know, because if you're coming in and out of a pool, you're probably not wearing a mask. What is the safest option? It'd probably be safest for you to return to your apartment and change than it would be to congregate in an area around other people where you would then change. So I'm thinking that's the reason for the showers remaining on lockdown. Now it may be as we go into other phases that opens up. Again, just like recreational pool will open up at some point, but for right now we're still.
Right. All right. Are you having difficulty getting tests?
So at this point, no. We do have test availability. If there is a surge or a spike, you know, we'll have to deal with that. But I think as of right now, we're not having any difficulty getting tests. There is still, you know, a 3-day turnaround. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes, depending on how the information is sent out by the lab, you might not get the call in 3 days. It may be 5 days, but your primary care doctor might know in 3. You know, it depends. But the availability of the test for us right now, we're not having any difficulty.
Okay. Can my family come stay with me to help if I have been hospitalized?
So, no, we're not wanting people, you know, we are a closed campus, still. So when it comes to family members or others coming in, we are not allowing that right now. And that, again, has to do with, you know, bringing that outside, you know, potential exposure into a high-risk community, which any long-term care place is considered. So I don't think there's actually any long-term, there may be long-term care facilities allowing people to stay, but I think for the most part, especially with a prolonged degree of exposure, that's just not safe right now.
All right. What are the biggest complications seen on the license side?
So right now, what we're seeing a lot in healthcare and assisted living and special care, I think the biggest thing has been probably weight loss, as well as, you know, increased weakness from, you know, being, you know, that loss of activities. So we're really kind of, you know, really working hard on adding supplements, on combating that, but it is, you know, that loss of interaction that we all have, and it's just, you know, it's the same for all of us. You know, we tend to eat socially, so when we take that social eating away, there's less cueing, and that, you know, leads to, in time, weight loss. And then, you know, COVID itself is, you know, you do have a loss of taste and smell, which can last for 4 to 6 weeks after, and that's really taken a hit on those that have recovered. But even those that have no COVID at all, which is the majority of our residents, we are seeing a large amount. And I think most long-term care communities are seeing the complication of weight loss, as well as weakness just from being inside the room more. So it's combating that need for safety, that need for, you know, isolation, to prevent us from getting COVID, you know, combating that with the need to keep our body moving, to keep our muscles active and engaged, which is why I think you heard me before talk about, and I'll continue to kind of talk about, we need to kind of really take note of what are we doing activity-wise, and, you know, are we writing down every hour, you know, what we're doing? I know, Anne, you have an iPhone watch that tells you to scan. I have the same minutes.
Right.
It's a big motivating factor, just to get up and walk around.
Exactly.
So something that reminds us to kind of get our 30 minutes of, you know, exercise in every day. To go on those walks outside is important, not just for our physical health, but also for our mental health. So really, even in the heat, and I do think you need to drink a lot of water, and it is hard, but
Right.
evening or morning is a great time to get outside. You know, it's not been raining that much, so that's been, you know, one of the activities that I try and do. And I do think that we really need to be very conscious about making sure that we're staying limber, and then also taking a look and making sure that we're not losing too much weight from not eating.
Right.
Because there's a difference between healthy weight loss and not healthy weight loss.
Sure.
And so we're really combating that loss of weight that we're seeing a lot in licensed size. So that's what we're really focused on right now.
Would you think rehab would be important if there's weakness?
Yes, so, you know, when we first started all this and our first case came out, we really took a hard look at, okay, we want to take anybody that's on therapy and really try and limit it as an exposure. We're now kind of shifting that more towards, you know, looking at anybody that's had that deconditioning or not been as active and now is showing increased weakness, getting them back on therapy. So rehab is very important. In the independent living side, again, getting back that exercise. I mean, a lot of us, we're going to the gym. I mean, a lot of our residents were utilizing, you know, water aerobics. We've lost some of that, you know. So taking a conscious effort of, okay, what am I doing? Because I'm not doing this, what am I going to do instead? And getting back to our baseline prior to COVID is very important.
Okay, good. We have one more question. D-Wing residents being tested upon entry. And I know the answer to this one.
Okay, yes.
So, do you know? Okay. So anyhow, they are not being tested for COVID tests. However, we do go over daily and do temperature checks and ask the important questions of where they've been and any symptoms that they're having. So
It's more like almost like you would screen for us
Right.
screening, yeah, so daily.
yeah, we do that for 2 weeks.
For the 14 days, yeah. And what they found is if somebody is not symptomatic within those 14 days, the likelihood of developing coronavirus without further exposure after is very low.
Okay, I think that's it. Is that it, Renee?
Well, thank you for all the questions.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Dr. Shearer. Appreciate that. Speaking of D-Wing, let's talk a little bit about D-Wing. So, is tomorrow Thursday? Wow, tomorrow. Week is flying by. Tomorrow, we will have our first residents transfer over to D-Wing. So really excited about that. We are opening up the 4th floor of D-Wing. It's an area that was not affected by this unfortunate event. And so the first residents are going to transfer over to the 4th floor. Very excited. Next week, we are second residents to transfer over, and then we will actually start helping people move in that originally had plans to move into some of the apartments on the 4th floor. The 2nd and 3rd floor, we have given authorization to the general contractor. The budget has been finalized, the timeline has been finalized, the materials that needed to be ordered have been ordered, and so we've given them the go-ahead to start putting renovations back, the project plan back in place to renovate those 8 apartments on the 2nd and the 3rd floor that were affected. So hopefully, things move swimmingly here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be on target to occupy the building in its entirety come the first week in October, which is what the plan calls for. I want to just talk a little bit about this particular live chat. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we're going to change the format up a little bit. This casual little setting here with a couple chairs is the last time you'll see us here on the yellow chairs. The reason for that is many residents have asked for more information since we don't get to see each other that often. Have asked for more people to come and present during this weekly live chat for about 5 or 10 minutes. So there'll be probably about 6 to 7 people next week. Because there's going to be a rotation of more people, we're going to do it a little bit more safely at the podium. And so as if you recall last week when Carol Marco and the residents facilitated the resident council meeting, similar to a format like that where people will come up and speak at the podium. Next week we have administration. There was a lot of questions recently about housekeeping. So Sharon Brown will be here and talk a little bit about housekeeping and the checklist of things that the housekeepers do inside a cottage versus an apartment, and the time allotted for either of those accommodations. There's some questions in the last 2 weeks about dining services and the Atrium Cafe. So David and team will be here to talk a little bit about services within dining. There was a question in the last 2 weeks about rehab services. How can PT, OT, and speech further help us in a global pandemic where we're still very much isolated? And so we're going to have a representative from our Health Pro Heritage team come and talk with us about how to complement rehab with the Pathways to Wellness building and all the amenities within that building. And we'll be here to talk a little bit more about the clinic, and then we'll round it out with a security update from our friends down at the Gatehouse, and then Trish or Florence or someone will wrap it up with spiritual well-being and our good news. So that will be our format for next week. Again, as I mentioned, I'm going to put this in a little bit of a memo form so you can see the different speakers that will be presenting throughout the month of August, so you can keep that at your fingertips. A couple of other administrative updates. My computer's not working. We talked about D-Wing. One of the things that has bubbled up since the dining room has been open now for 2 weeks, this is our 3rd week or 4th, has to do with folks that are traveling up from the cottages, and particularly those that do not have a car. So we have made provisions. If a resident who lives in a cottage needs a ride up for dinner, we ask that you contact the concierge desk. The concierge desk will in turn have one of the CNAs from our Helping Hands program come and pick you up, and that service will be available 7 days a week. So I know there's a few residents out there, or a few of you who have had concern for neighbors, and that is all our alternative fix to help help those folks get up to the main building here for dinner. So please take advantage of that. I think Amanda's putting out a memo about that in written form so people can read about it. One other, God, my laptop is frozen. A couple of other updates around construction. The household project over on the west side of our property. Got news last week about the updated schedule. According to last week's schedule, we should be able to occupy that space probably in January. And once we occupy the space, our design team needs to get into the building and implement that design plan. And so it's according to the schedule from last week, at some point in the month of January, we will be occupying that space. That's great news. Those of you that live in assisted living, the railings, if you haven't noticed, have been installed outside of your dining room, all the way down to, which is another part of the news, the garden bed area is now open. So those of you that are in assisted living, or those of you that are just walking outside of the wellness building down on the west side of the property with all those steps, those railings are in on both sides of the stairs. So it's very safe to walk down those steps down. And then once you get down at the bottom of the steps, the garden bed area is complete. Beth Burrell and the entire garden committee and Jack Johnson have been working just so hard, not to mention our partners, James River, have been working so hard to get that space ready for you. It's just, if you haven't taken a gander down there on the south side of the wellness courtyard, I would encourage you to do so. It's just a really awesome amenity that took a lot of planning. And again, I just want to lift up Mrs. Dowdy. Mrs. Dowdy was at the center of helping us plan for that space, and Mr. Dowdy. But Mrs. Dowdy was the one behind the scenes, writing down notes, and I remember in the beginning where she just had a paper and a pencil and just dreaming about that space of what it could become. So I know Mrs. Dowdy is looking down on us today and saying a hearty amen now that space is ready and people will be able to utilize that area for years to come with not just a hobby of gardening, as Beth and Jan Steele helped us understand last week. We have a new dimension to our well-being called Cultivate, and really being in touch with the Mother Nature and birding and gardening and our general surrounding areas is just really critical to our well-rounded well-being at Cedarfield. So this space is just going to be able to accentuate that point that much further. So I think those are all of our administrative updates. Renee, anything else come in?
July is 31 days. Will they get 31 meals?
July is 31 days. Will they get 31 meals?
And not have to pay for the 31.
So there's 31 days in July, and we'll have 31 meals in July without being charged for that 31st meal. That is correct. All right. So we're going to share, any other questions? Eddie, do we have any other questions to cover? No. We're going to share some good news. Trish Carter's going to, I believe, share the good news. Yeah. Share some good news about Mary Ann Baker, and then Kaifa Brown, one of our interns here, is going to lead us with our spiritual well-being. For those of you who do not know, Reverend Brown. He is an ordained Baptist minister, the associate pastor at Little Union Baptist Church in Dumfries, Virginia. He received his Master's of Divinity from the School of Theology at the Virginia Union University. He lives in Fredericksburg with his wife, and they have 4 children. So he's going to lead us with our spiritual well-being. So, Trish, would you like to? Who's leading us with the good news? Oh, Patrick. Oh, good. Patrick can do it all. Very good. I am unfortunately. You have a microphone?
Here's.
Oh, there she is. Had a little. Hold on 1 second. We're going to get to that picture, Mrs. Baker. Oh, there we go. All right. Take her away, sir.
So, good news for today. Mary Ann Baker's granddaughter, Spencer Angel, has been accepted into Harvard Law School. Yay! Congratulations to her, and I know Mrs. Baker is really, really proud, and this speaks to the passage on of legacy through generations. Congratulations. And our spiritual well-being for today, I want to share with you a quote from Albert Einstein. And he says, human beings are part of a whole called by us the universe. Problem is, we experience ourselves, our thoughts, and feelings as separate from the rest of humanity, which he says is a kind of prison for us because it restricts us to our personal desires and to affection for only a few persons nearest to us. And he says our task must be to free ourselves from the prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So when I read this quote, the word community comes to mind, and I realize that Einstein is referring to a larger community in the universe, but we can relate that to our small community here at Cedarfield. And as a community, we need to be sensitive to the needs of others of our community, and we do that by loving and by caring for each other. Now, loving means being able to say to each member of the community, I'm glad that you are here. It's good that you exist. And we should practice that daily and tell each other, I'm glad that you're part of our community. And from a theological perspective, we exist because of the Creator's desire for us to exist. So who we are as persons or as self is not based on our traits or our abilities, but rather that the Creator has desired and willed us to be here. So at no point in our lives should any one of us lose that idea of self or value. And if any one of our members in this community ever loses the idea of self, it reflects a failure on the community as a whole. Because as a community, there are no strangers and there are no aliens. And so therefore our task should be to make each other feel included, loved, regardless of what our challenges are, be it physical, mental, or whatever else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was perfect. One last thing for me. Some residents have communicated to the administration office that that since we have these live chats, that during the time when we flash our email and the text, telephone number up here, that's the only time that they can ask questions about COVID-19, and that could not be furthest from the truth. If anybody has any questions about our Cedarfield Forward three-phase plan, if anybody has any questions about operations at Cedarfield in general, I love to believe that we have a very healthy communication here, very transparent communication. If residents need to ask any questions, feel free to seek out the directors of the various departments. They can answer any of your questions. You can certainly contact Resident Council, Carol Marco, and the other subcommittees. Feel free to come down to administration here, and we will answer any of your questions just as timely as we can get to them. Please don't forget, wear your masks. There's scientific evidence that proves the fact that masks work around the world, and it's no different here at Cedarfield. Those team members that are watching this live and or video, we would appreciate team members and residents making sure that we all wear our masks properly, especially putting that mask over top of our nose. That mask is only effective when it is over our mouth and our nose, and it's one of our shared goals to make sure that we wear our masks religiously around the community, and quite honestly, when we're outside the gates of Cedarfield as well. So hopefully this information was helpful to you. If anybody has any suggestions of information to cover next week, we will probably not be taking questions via text next week. If anybody has any questions that they would like us to cover during a live chat, I would ask that you please email Renee Langley with your question, and we will make sure that those questions get into the queue of the live chat for next week. So that will be our format for next week. Again, look forward to a memo coming out from yours truly describing what our live chat format will be for next week and for the foreseeable weekly chats to come. Until then, I hope you have a great night and a great weekend if I don't see you, and we'll talk with you soon. Thank you.